So let's talk about probate, because this is really what I help people avoid. So a lot of people come into my office, they either have a will, they did it themselves, it's 20 years old.
It wasn't executed properly.
Yeah.
It
So
was not effective.
yeah, so a lot of people do planning through wills, and that's great. But just keep in mind that a will doesn't avoid probate. So do people understand what the process of probate is? All right. So that's when we actually have to go to the court and say, we need you to administer this estate. We need for you to actually start handing out assets to the heirs. So it's the court process of making sure that happens properly. And a lot of people assume, I have a will, I don't have to go through probate, right? You absolutely do. Because the first question with the will is the will valid? And the court makes that determination. So a lot of people get a will drafted, or they draft one themselves thinking they've got everything set. But it really is just the beginning. So most of my clients are trying to avoid this process once they're better educated on what this process looks like. So from the cost standpoint, they want to avoid it because it can cost you anywhere from 2 to 7% of your estate to go through this process. All right? So I'm going to say this, I do this work, okay? Because it's a teachable moment for the family. Because once we kind of go through this process, they're wanting to get their estate and their affairs in order in the right way, okay? So think about how costly that can be, 2 to 7% of the estate assets. So those are estates that are, those are assets that are being depleted before they even get to your family. The other thing you should think about is that probate, the priority is making sure creditors get paid. So there's some problems with that. It has to be a public process, right? So we're able, anybody off the street can see your will. Creditors, obviously, because we have to give them notice that you've passed away, so they have an opportunity to stake a claim on the estate. But guess who else is seeing this? Predators. Predators are able to see everything you've left and who you've left it to. And as you can imagine, if you have young children, or let's not even say young children, because I have people who come into the office and their children are grown. But they're grown and they're 30-something and they just can't, they don't make good decisions. Can you imagine that? And so the process of planning properly, make sure that we avoid this process, that we keep it private, and that we avoid the cost and the time. So probate can take some time. So it can be pretty quick, anywhere from about 90 to 120 days after we file the petition, but it can take years. And you have to remember that those assets are literally tied up in the court process. That means your family doesn't have them. So if your intent was to make sure your family was doing okay financially, if you left them, that probably won't do it. All right, so, and this is just kind of like a diagram of how much it can end up costing your estate if you decide to go through this process instead. Now, there are families that will come into my office and I'm like, probate is a good idea because you have nothing. Let's show the creditors you have nothing. Right. But for most of us, it's not.